This is just the gameplay of the game. The player speed is set to 3.5, and at the beginning they're in a danger states, meaning they can attack player. So the player switches the box on, the game starts, time is set to 15 seconds, and every time player interacts with the boxes get destroyed, and the speed of the player is increased by 0.5. And once the time runs out, they get back to the danger states, meaning player cannot destroy them. And the switch box interact script gets updated with the new boxes depending how many are there still left on the map. And boxes can attack in a danger state, and player have to switch the game back on, and he can get back to collecting. And once the switch is turned off, the player speed gets to 3.5. Once the player collects all the boxes, the message you win displays at the middle of the screen. This is just a simple game over screen I wanted to show you. Once the health reaches 0 or less, the game over shows at the middle of the screen. This is just a simple animated mesh I made using the animate box script on the right. It just simply cycle through mesh 0 and mesh 1, and you can see on mesh filter just switching it every 1.5 second I think, and the animation is just basically him closing and opening his mouth. This is just a box interact script for switch, and at the start for each game object, Boxy gets painted red, meaning they're in a danger state and can attack player. And for public override void interact, we have a if statement, which is basically safety, which is a bool, set to false, meaning safety is false. It checks if the game is off, meaning if it's off, this gets started, print switch on, safety gets to true, meaning the game is running, mash render gets the component and paints all the boxes white, and boxes.clear, the box list gets cleared of all the boxes in it. And else statement is basically if the game is true, its debug game is on, so the player cannot switch the game a couple of times, it can only switch once because this doesn't allow anymore. And so the start quarantine delay gets on, which basically waits 15 seconds, then prints switch off, safety gets back to false, meaning a player can turn the switch back on. The list game object boxy new gets the new list of all the boxes, and for each game object in the game with a tag enemy gets put into that list, meaning this boxy list gets updated at the end with how many boxes there's left, and for each that boxy gets painted white, meaning gets painted red, meaning they can attack player again. This is the animate box for boxes to switch between meshes, and it just have a public mesh pick 1, pick 2 for meshes, and it's just using if statement to test if it's false. It changes the mesh to pick 1, then changes this to true, so this once this gets called again, it changes to pick number 2, and then back to test equals false, and it gets called every 0.5 second in an update. Change it up here, but because it has a start quarantine example, it would add another 1 second between the animation, so it switches, the animation gets switched between 1.5 second between every mesh. nav mesh script is just a script for a player. It accesses the nav mesh agent component at the start, and it also gets the box interact safety and boxy def score and it uses this in a if statement. So check number is set to 1. So in order for this to activate, a player must destroy a boxy and get 1 point. So this activates and increase the player speed by 0.5, and check number is increased by 1. So in order for this to activate again, player must destroy another boxy, and this checks if box game is false, meaning if when the game stops after the time, the player speed is reset to 3.5. Boxy def script is just a simple script used to destroy boxies. It's basically gets the box interact safety, meaning if box game equals true, so if the game has been started and if game object tag equals enemy, which is the boxy tag, it just destroys the object and adds 1 point. Player health script is used to control player health. It's set to 100 and it's public static because other classes access it, and in damage is set to 10. And on update it calls the box interact safety, which checks if the switch is been on or off, and on collision enter collision call. So if a player is with collision and the game object tag is enemy, which is for the tag for boxes, and box game equals false, which means it's not turned on, player health loses player health minus damage, which is set to 10. Health text is just a script to display the player's health on the screen. It uses Unity Engine UI, and at the start it calls for player health, which is a player's health in a player health class, and on awake it gets the text component, and in a update method it's if statement if health text is above 0, health text equals player's health text. This just updates every time a player gets hurt, so this will update it, and text.text health, and then health text, which is the current player health, will be displayed, and if it's above it will display player health, but if it's less or equal then text will display health 0. Scorer class is basically like health text. It uses Unity Engine UI, gets the text component and set the scores to 0 on awake, and in a void update it gets the score from Boxy def, because that's where the score is added up every time the boxy gets destroyed, and it just uses text to display the score on the screen. Timer script is used to count the time for the switch. So the way it works is in a void update, if box game, which is true, meaning the switch has been turned on and the game started, and the play equals 0, which it is at the start, then time left is set to 15 seconds, play is equal at 1, and start method gets called. So if play equals 1, which it will, because this changes it, start quarantine, lose time, and then start quarantine, lose time, while it's true, wait for second 1, and then time left gets taken away every second, so it counts from 15 down each second, and once it goes below 0 it will stop quarantine time, and then play gets back to 0, and this activate again when the player starts the switch again. Endgame is used to display the text for either you win or game over, depending on the score or your health. So in a void start it accesses the player's health, and in awake says the score to 0, and max score is 8. So in a void update it updates the player health and score from Boxy def new score, and if health text, which is player health, goes below 0 it displays game over, else if score is equal to max score, which is 8, which is the maximum boxes in a game, then the text is UN. Rigid animation allows for smooth flow of animation using Blender to switch between animation depending on if a player is attacking or if it's walking or standing still, and it can contain many animations, and it's used for players or enemy, where player can either attack, run, stand still, or jump. It switches between depending on whatever the player is doing, while mesh animation switch between meshes and pictures to animate the object, and it's simple and easy to use, and it's perfect for small project, for example like a switch, where it's either the switch is on or off, and it just switches between different pictures or meshes depending whether the switch is on or off.